Jazz here, and I am so digging the GeekCast Radio Network.
Greetings, humans. This is Starscream, and you're listening to Toycast. And if any of you call me a parts former one more time...
Now, Toycast. Oh, yes. Listen in to the only toy podcast you will ever need.
Hello and welcome to an all-new generation of Toycast as we get the origins of any and all toy fans that we can. I'm, of course, TFG and Mike. Today's featured guest is someone who is returning. We actually heard part of his toy story in episode 100, so if you people want to go listen to the 5 hours that episode was, go back there and listen to that. But he has been on the GeekCast Radio Network for 13, 14 years, for probably as long as the network has been around, because he joined in TFG 1 episode 16. It is that mac and cheese loving fool. It's Optimus Solo. Hello, sir. How are you?
The one and only Optimus Solo.
Yes. One and only.
I'm good.
Yeah, it's funny because I know you're not that big on this whole social media thing, but at one point or another, I was going to set you up with a Facebook fan page, just, facebook.com/profile/Optimus Solo, whatever else. So I actually went out because you have to go out and you have to look and see if any names are taken kind of thing. There is some, I don't know, some other person who is a different nationality, a different whatever, called Optimus Solo out there that his page is not in English, and I'm just like, wait, what? How do you even know? Anyway, we're here to talk toys.
Toys?
Yes, toys. This is Toycast,
Foreign subject to me.
Yes, foreign. Exactly. Well, you did just, U-Haul your entire collection from one state to another in the last year or so.
That is true.
This is what it is. What is or was the first toy you remember having as a kid?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah, we don't pull punches around here. We just, throw you right in the deep end.
Probably that bench that had little things that you could hammer down that you had when you were in preschool, or a xylophone maybe. I don't know, man. That's maybe a rattle.
Is that really a toy, though? I mean, is that a toy?
Oh, you'll find out it is.
Oh, Lord.
Maybe.
I bet you have a whole ultimate rattles list somewhere, don't you?
No, but it's probably up there with dirt and sand and rocks and blocks. And
we are that old, folks. We are older than dirt over here. So
some of us.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I am. Oh, boy. So that's your answer?
I mean, if you said first, if we want to not count preschool stuff, I'm going to count this. Okay, this is going to sound weird to people probably. My bedroom, the first bedroom that I ever remember having, and I'm not saying there wasn't a different one, maybe when I was first born or something, but when I was a wee little lad, I had a bedroom that was done in a Care Bear design. And it featured on my walls, there was I think clouds, and not just on paint, some of it stuck out, clouds and rainbows and stuffed Care Bears that I think Velcroed to the wall maybe. And that I'm going to count that as a stuffed animal, as a toy, as probably the youngest version of something that wasn't just a preschool, not preschool, but an infant rattle or something like that.
Yeah. I remember having something similar to that where it was you could throw it it was a Velcro wall. The piece that you could throw had the other piece of Velcro. You throw it and it stuck to the wall.
Yeah, like my whole wall wasn't Velcro, but like they had like a little rectangular thing that was on the Care Bear and that would like go a specific spot on the wall. And there might be more than one. Maybe there was 2 or 3 Care Bears or whatever. And then I remember there being clouds and rainbows and stuff, but that's a vague memory.
Very cool, very cool. Was there a particular adult who was supportive of you playing with toys as a kid? Was there anyone who was unsupportive?
My mom was pretty supportive, actually, for most of my youth. She would latch on to whatever franchise I was collecting or liked at that time and would definitely support it by getting me all of that type of thing for my birthday or for Christmas. And it was kind of probably interesting because my birthday and Christmas are only about a month apart. So whatever I was into at my birthday, I was probably also into at Christmas. So you'd get like that double, like, here's a bunch of that type of thing for your birthday, and then here's a bunch more of that type of thing for Christmas. So I ended up with lots of whatever I was into at that exact moment. So yeah, my mom was pretty supportive, and it didn't seem to matter what my interest was. She would just go to that, whether it was one franchise or a different franchise or this type of toy or that type of toy. I think she enjoyed helping me collect that type of stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I think my whole family has collector genes in them. And I have a brother that's 10 years older than me. So he would have supported it because I was playing with some of his toys, and then sometimes we had similar toys like in the same line, so to speak. So like he had the 1970s Star Wars action figures with the Darth Vader case and things of that nature, and he would let me play with those. Eventually those became mine. He gifted them to me because I was developing a very large Star Wars collection. And I remember he had some Transformers and I had some Transformers, which all ended up becoming mine and things of that nature. So there was kind of an older brother supportive. There was a mom supportive. I don't really recall anybody else anywhere being pro or negative.
Okay, cool. What types of toys were your favorites to play with as a kid?
I went from one thing to another, realistically. So the earliest like group of toys outside of just one-offs would have been Transformers. And then my brother had like the big, like 12-inch old school G.I. Joes, like before the G.I. Joes of our generation became a thing. And he had the Star Wars figures. So, but I think the first one that was really, I would say was mine was the Transformers stuff. Like I started developing a Transformers collection. I got into Legos at some point pretty hardcore. I had a lot of the castle, like medieval knight type sets. My older brother had some old school like space Legos and things of that, but my collection was the knights and the castles and things of that nature. And then I transitioned into a little of everything, a little G.I. Joes, a little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a little Thundercats and Silverhawks. And then Star Wars actually came a little later. I had my brothers that I played with, but I didn't really start buying Star Wars until after all of those other phases. So it was like middle school, high school was really my Star Wars years. Whereas when I was a kid, it was all of the stuff that was current, the He-Man, the G.I. Joe, Transformers, etc.
So out of all of those, as your childhood toys, which ones stand out more than the rest? Which ones, as a kid, did you gravitate towards more than any others?
I never had as big of a collection of anything as I did Transformers. So Transformers was easily the biggest collection I had. I think after that, I actually probably had more starting lineup figures than anything else. My Motu collection was fairly small, like probably a dozen or less, but I had a cousin that had like all of them. So I would play with those at his house. And I had a friend that had a ton of G.I. Joe, so I didn't have a ton myself. Again, maybe like 10 or 12. And Turtles, I probably had a few more. I probably had about a dozen or 15 of the different Turtles. So I think starting lineup figures, I probably had close to 15 or 20, but it was definitely Transformers. That was the majority. And then after that, I had like Legos would probably be my next biggest collection, and then Micro Machines maybe. I had a lot of Micro Machines back in the day.
Very cool, very cool. Do you prefer the label of action figures, dolls, toys, or other labels?
It depends on what you're talking about. Action figures and dolls are two different things. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. So there's a distinct difference between an action figure and a doll. And I think that's something that we'll probably get into more discussions of when we do our next top 100, because there's different categories and I have them separated into dolls and action figures. But to me, an action figure it's plastic. It's, in the case of Transformers, die-cast, metal, plastic, hard thing, rubber maybe could be an action figure. Whereas when you have a doll, you have real hair, not real hair, but like you have hair, in some cases real hair, and you have cloth, or you have softness a lot of times, or at least part or features that would be like that. So to me, like it's a Barbie doll because it would have hair, right? It would have soft clothes. It would have, it's a different type of posability and articulation. It's a different size typically. I know that there's gray areas. I know there's arguments that could be said, well, that fits your definition of action figure, or this action figure fits your definition of doll. But I guess for me, like the example is I consider the 12-inch G.I. Joe figures, the old school ones, and maybe even the ones that were around, but like I'm talking about the ones from like the 60s, 70s, whenever that was. Yeah. Those 12-inch figures to me are dolls. They're not action figures. The 3.75-inch are action figures. And same thing as Star Wars. Star Wars had 12-inch things. Those to me are more dolls and not as much of an action figure. I know it's gotten a little bit more blurry in the last like 10, 15 years because scales and size have gone a little bit different. And, there's this big fad now for like the 8-inch or the Star Wars, like the Black Series, G.I. Joe, the classic series, classifieds. Yeah. And those are kind of in that middle ground, but I think they're still more action figures than dolls. So I don't know. I call everything that I have almost as action figures. I didn't collect a whole lot of dolls, and for my definition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, audience, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it in every episode. The genesis of the question is, my grandparents, it's basically our parents, our grandparents, any relatives that were around us in the 80s as children. Oh, little Mikey's going to go home and play with his dolls. They're not dolls, Grandma. They're action figures. Like, that's essentially where the genesis of the question comes from, is because our grandparents and family members would not name the specific, like, Transformers were not dolls. Right. They were not. Right. There's, like you just said, And
it's kind of how you're going to do them too. If the main function is to dress it up in different amounts of clothing or different types of clothing, or mess with its hair and brush it and do things like that, like that's more stuff you would do with a doll, feeding it, the babies that you go pee or whatever, like that. Those are all doll features, and action figures are more like opposable thing. They have weapons. They have different, I don't know. That's how I view them. And the toy companies definitely made a distinct effort to separate that, because they knew that a boy didn't, at the time, the stereotype, the boy wouldn't want to be playing with a doll. So that's why they started calling them action figures, etc. So there's definitely a concerted effort to try to gear one towards a female audience and one towards a male audience.
Absolutely. Good guys or bad guys? Which toys were your favorites to play with the most?
Wow, that's a hard question. I think it depended on the figure for me. Like, if the figure was cool, I don't care if it's good or bad. Like, Soundwave was one of my favorite characters, so I liked that toy even though he's a bad guy. And Ironhide and Ratchet were good guys, but those toys weren't very good in the original G1, in my opinion. So I didn't want...
They have no...
Yeah, they don't have any heads. It was weird for a child. So like, I didn't want to necessarily play with those. So, and Transformers is a tricky one because kids like certain things. Like all kids that go through a phase, right? There's the phase that kids like dinosaurs, and I do remember having a lot of like dinosaur, like they wouldn't be figures, but I don't know what you would call them, like the toy animals, like the barnyard stuff. But there was dinosaurs. I remember having a lot of those. So kids go through a dinosaur phase. And I think kids also go through an airplane phase. Sometimes, some of them, where they like paper airplanes, they like planes they could fly, like maybe like a remote control type plane or other different actual moving planes. They like toy planes. They like watching planes, whatever it is. A lot of kids go through a plane phase, and Transformers like flip the script because they take one of those favorite types of things and they're all bad guys for the most part. I mean, I'm not saying there wasn't the aerial bots and Jetstorm, whatever.
It came later.
Right. Yeah. But all the Seekers were planes and a lot of the bad guys were planes. So it was kind of weird because that's like something you wanted to play with. With Masters of the Universe, a lot of those figures had elements that you could do something with, whether it be squirting blood through Mosquito or Leech with his suction cups and things like that. Ram Man, obviously had the spring action. So it really depended on which one of those features you liked on the figure. So I tended to like some of the bad guys in the Masters of the Universe based on their little gimmick. And then like G.I. Joe, for me, they don't really have gimmicks as much. Their figures didn't do stuff like Masters of the Universe. They didn't transform like Transformers. So it was really just the person. And it all came down to, did you like the look of the person or not? So like certain Cobra Commander figures or some of his like foot soldiers type, like the Vipers and things of that nature had cool looks. So Destro has a silver head, so you're going to like that. So it really just depends on the actual line. And I didn't find myself playing more so with good guys or bad guys. I usually had them both out and was like trying to do a story with all of them interacting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. Did you and your friends ever pretend with your toys that you had? By this, I mean, did you say, Kevin's going to be the water bottle and Steve can be the piece of glass kind of thing? Like, it used to just be called pretend, folks, but apparently in today's society it's called live action role play. But, did you ever do anything like that?
The bottle? We would pretend that we were characters from these shows.
Yeah, exactly.
And it helped because a lot of the lines put out stuff like I had the claw from Thundercats that you could wear on your hand, and you had like a Lion-O claw, and I think there was other pieces. The Thundercats, I remember, did quite a few things with kind of role play pieces. So I think that existed. And then obviously every Halloween you pretended to be one of the characters of whatever show you were talking about. So I guess that's a little bit of a cheat, but you kind of did that. But I do remember doing it with Thundercats. I don't remember ever pretending that we were Transformers. That seems like it would have been weird. And I don't know why, but we never pretended to be a G.I. Joe. I think it was literally Thundercats, and that was about it when it came to my role playing.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, the Transformers stuff, it was...
Like, I can't picture myself being like, hey, I'm Optimus Prime and I'm about to transform and now I'm going to roll around.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was more about the robot part than the actual transformation. Again, it was...
I'm not saying I didn't do it. Maybe I did, but I only remember the Thundercats. Because we had the claw, and I think we had like a sword and maybe some shields or something. Oh, I take that back. And turtles. Because of... You could pick up a stick and you had a bow, like you were Donatello. And my father was a police officer, and at one point he is a small town police officer. So, I mean, we had like less than 2,000 people, and there's not any crime, so to speak, besides maybe drunkenness or whatever. We had like we had a quote unquote gang, and that would not fit the definition of a gang in any realm whatsoever, but they hung out at a certain place on certain nights. That was about it. But anyways, at one point he confiscated an actual pair of nunchucks from somebody. And I don't know why, but I guess he didn't have to turn it in or something. So he brought them home, and like they were sitting in our garage. And that was during like the time when Turtles was 1987. So I would have been like 6.
You would have been 6
when it came out, but by the time I was like into it, I'm 7, 8 years old or whatever. And there was these nunchucks that were sitting in our garage, and I for sure decided I was going to be Raphael until the first time you hit yourself with, in the face or in the head with one of those that you don't know what you're doing with, because that hurts like hell. And
you mean Michael? Michelangelo, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant, Michelangelo. So I pretended I was Michelangelo until the first headshot, and then I was like, oh, these things are painful and dangerous. I'm putting these down. And that was the end of that. So, but I do remember us playing as turtles because it was easier. Like I said, you picked up a stick and you had Donatello's bow. We didn't have knives like Leonardo or anything, but you had you could play a little bit more like that with turtles. So Thundercats and Turtles were the only ones we pretended.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
Yeah, not a thing that anybody should try to do if you're not experienced or have training. Yikes!
Nope.
John Wick is crazy. He has mad nunchuck skills. Go watch John Wick 4.
Yes. Or in my case, wait for Voodoo. Yeah.
Oh, I'm telling you, when you watch it, wait for the nunchuck scene.
Well, yeah, obviously. But I remember when I was a kid and the movie came out and it was like, oh, okay, I think and I'm like, wait a minute, why are you talking about a foul checker? Like, I could never get, as a 10-year-old in 1990, I could never get what the line was. And of course, it would be forever until we had the internet and quotes.
I could have helped you out back then because I had every line of that movie memorized. I could say it.
I had most every,
the movie was playing. I watched that movie probably more than any movie during that time period.
I can do it now.
And I had the CD. It wasn't a CD. I had the tape. The tour, the Heroes in a Half Shell tour or something. I don't know what it was, but it had Ninja Rap.
Coming out of their shells
tour. Yes, I had that tape. And I played that a lot. And I pretended to be the Turtles as I rapped and sang.
Out of our shells, we're coming out of a shell.
Very cool. What features define a good toy to you? How true does the item feel in comparison to the source material likeness?
It doesn't. So by feel, you mean look? I assume, like you're saying, how much does
does it capture? How much does it have to be?
It definitely plays a huge part of it. Like there are so many that are so bad that don't look anything like what they look like, so that makes it really hard. Ironhide and Ratchet, for example, they don't look like their show counterpart, and I get it. They were a toy that already existed, et cetera, based on a different mold from blah blah blah. But it's very much like when you're playing with a toy, you want it to feel like you're playing with the cartoon character you had or the movie character you had or whatever the comic book that you read. Like it should match that. So I think likeness is huge, and certain lines were way better at that than others. But for me, the first part of your question, I think you said something about like what features do.
What features define a good toy to you?
So to me, and you kind of went right into it. So first factor is how much it looks like it's supposed to look like. The second part is if it does something cool, like I talked about. That's why Transformers have a built-in advantage over so many, because they transform. Just in that in of itself, it doesn't have to do anything else. It transforms. It does more than a static action figure. But even within that, then you had Transformers that did other stuff. So you had like the Throttle Bots, and you had the Pretenders, and you had the Headmasters, and then so then they do something else, and it makes it even better. Like we talked about already, Masters of the Universe had a lot of figures that did other things, or playset type situations like the Slime Pit that could do other things, with the figures. You had Mossman, who had just a different feel. He didn't necessarily do anything, but he had a different feel. So things like that really, for me, separated those lines from something like most G.I. Joes did not do much. Most Star Wars figures at that time did not do much. So that helped. The Turtles necessarily didn't do a whole lot. Some of now, when I say that, don't do much, a lot of figures have like the swing motion or the arm that you can make go like, in one direction by pushing a button or by winding it up. I'm not necessarily counting that too much as doing something, because that was just kind of a lot of them did that. But the thing that the Turtles had that even separates it from like, say, Star Wars or whatever at that time, because when you got a Star Wars figure, it had either a lightsaber or a gun, like a blaster or a rifle or something of that nature, and that's about it. Right. They didn't come with a lot of accessories, and the Turtles, to me, the Turtles were like one. I mean, obviously Transformers had multiple guns or missiles or armor pieces, body parts that you could do different stuff with. But Turtles was one of the first one where it was like they came with a lot of accessories. Like they came with a piece of pizza, they came with their main weapon, they came with another weapon, they came, and there was all the different types of turtles. Like there was the baseball turtles or the sports playing turtles or all these different things. So
or the sewer spitting turtles.
Yeah, but
where you could fill them up with water and have them spit water at each other.
Right. But so for me, the turtles had a lot of cool accessories. So if it's not going to necessarily do something or have an action or something like that, then if it comes with a bunch of accessories, that helps. But otherwise, I think the main thing is how close they look to something. And if they did do something, this is kind of more specifically talking about Transformers, how easy or hard is it to do what you're doing with them? And this was more for like later on in life. But when I remember when the alternators came out for Transformers, very cool looking line, right? Like they look awesome. They make these cool looking cars. They look cool as in the robot form, etc. However, what really stopped me from continuing to buy that line is you need to study the instructions for probably a good month before you try to transform those, because it's like the most complex transformation. And I get it, if you did it a bunch of times you'd have it memorized, but like the old school Transformers, you didn't need an instruction book. Probably you could just figure it out by looking at it and by testing a couple things, and you could figure it out. Like you cannot do that accurately with an alternators if you have no prior experience with them. So
because you're technically turning a realistic I'm not saying the other Transformers were not realistic looking when it comes to their alt modes, but the point of the alternators was, let's throw Nissan in there, let's throw Hyundai in there, let's throw this in there, let's throw that. Like, they were going after a realistic car and plane and whatever else mode, designs, so you could have that complexity of, where would the gear...
But as a kid, if that had come out when I was a kid, I don't think I would have been something that I spent a lot of time on. Not because I lack the attention span, but just because I want to be able to do it without going to the instructions for step 1, going to the instructions for step 2, going to the instructions for step 3. Like, I don't want to do that as a kid that much. I want to just play.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the slime pit earlier. What is or was your favorite toy vehicle or playset?
Toy vehicle or playset? I think that my answer for that, and I'm not going to know the right name, the G.I. Joes had a collection of snow-like vehicles, Tiger... something, but they had like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 different vehicles that were for this like snow area, snow land. and I had this one that was like almost like it's not an SUV because SUVs didn't exist, but it was basically like this truck that wasn't really a truck, but it had a compartment in the front that you could put figures, and then it had missiles on the side, missiles on the back, like a rotating missile thing. I'm going to have to look it up because I can't remember. I think Frostbite came with it. Maybe the character's name was Frostbite that came with that. My G.I. Joe knowledge right now is a little rusty, but it was...
yeah, you're right. No, you got it. Okay. The Snowcat.
Yeah, the Snowcat. Because you could... And the reason I liked it is because not only was it a vehicle and it looked cool and it had lots of missiles, but you could fit... If memory's serving right, you could fit 2 people in the front, in the cab, with the little plastic like glass that shut down over them. And then there was multiple spots on the side and on the back that you could peg the characters on, like from a standing standpoint. So you could actually carry like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like maybe 8 characters, I'm guessing, on that thing. And it was one of the only, I had a few, for some reason I didn't have like a ton of G.I. Joe figures, but that line specifically, I had more vehicles than any of the other lines. Like I had maybe 6 or 7 of the G.I. Joe vehicles and maybe like 4 of the He-Man vehicles. Otherwise, I mainly had figures. But that was one I just thought it was cool because of the number of missiles and the number of people that you could fit on it and then drive around.
Yeah, the Snowcat is pretty much your super duper...
what would you call that, though? It's not an SUV and it's not a truck. It's
a... Well, that's what I was trying to say. It's kind of like it's kind of like... It's crossover, folks. It's a combination truck and snowmobile all at once, but it's like the Ford F-150 in the front and a snowmobile, like snowplow type thing in the back because it has the tank treads. I'm looking at the picture right now.
Yeah.
So, but Snowcat with Frostbite was, that thing, and it came with so much stuff. My God. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9 large and small guns and missiles.
Oh, there's another one though. So there's a Snowcat, and then the one that I had must have been a variation of it because it's called the Tiger Force Cat. So if you look up the Tiger Force Cat, this thing was like a yellow and black like tiger stripe pattern with jaw like a mouth in the front and then eyes like where the door was, and it still came with Frostbite, but he had like a yellow and black pants and stuff like that. And the Tiger Force Cat was the one that I had, and the other reason I liked it, I think, was because my dad was a big model plane person. He had literally, like, my mom says that he had over like 200 or 300 that he had built, painted, and sold before I was around. And our basement had over 150 of them, like all sizes. Like he was an expert model plane, like assembler slash, not spray paint, airbrush paint, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the planes of the time, because he would do like the World War II planes or whatever, would have like these teeth, mouth, eyes, kind of like this Tiger Force Cat does. So it also reminded me of kind of those planes, which was very cool. But again, you could still, like I said, you could fit, probably 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 6 figures on this thing.
Yeah,
and I just
3 on one side, 3 on the other, and then 2 in the. Basically, you could fit 8 figures total: 2 in the cockpit, or 1 in the cockpit if the cockpit only has 1.
No, it has 2.
And then, so 2 in the cockpit, and then 6 total on the back, 3 on either side.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the one that I had, and that was probably my favorite one.
Very cool. Very cool. What about a playset?
I don't think I ever had any playsets. What I'm trying to think. Like I didn't have Castle Grayskull or Snake Mountain until I was an adult.
What?
I didn't have any Turtle playsets. I didn't have any G.I. Joe playsets. I think the closest I'm going to come is, if I stretch, for Transformers, and Metroplex doesn't count, but I had him. And the Space Shuttle kind of counts, but because it had like some places.
I usually don't let people count Transformers, but
and this is something that you had just seen on social media of mine. I had that cardboard graphic stand for Transformers that was basically like this big. It was basically a playset, but it was 100% cardboard with different cutouts and different designs and different places that you could put characters, and it was very big. And so that's like the closest I came to a playset. I think my parents, especially my mom, probably, because she had a set budget, like when she did Christmas presents or whatever, it was, she had 3 kids and she was going to spend the exact same amount on all 3 kids. And we didn't have a lot of money. So maybe that was like $100 or $200 or something. Like, I have $100 to spend on all 3 kids. Like, so I'm going to spend $100 on him, $100 on him, $100 on her, or whatever it was. There was some number, and it wasn't a lot. Yeah. So I think the fact of getting a playset, which was going to be like, here's your one present, or you know what I mean, versus I can get him 10, 15, whatever figures. I don't think I ever got 15, but you know what I mean? Like, I can get him some socks and some clothes and these 6 figures and this other figure from this line. She could there was more presents to open if she did the individual figures. So I think that's why she stayed away from play sets. And I wasn't buying anything. I had no money.
Yeah. The funny thing is, in our family, most of the time, yes, my mom would get me, the standard kid stuff that no kid wants at Christmas. No kid wants Santa Claus coming down. Yeah. That's what the grandparents and the aunts and uncles are for. So all the practical things come from other people, and then the toys and all the other goodies come from your parents.
We had one thing that was, so we would have a set number of things. She would try to maximize the number of presents you got, probably. And we also had stockings, right. So there was some money that would go to like the little things you threw in stockings, like candy or whatever. And
yeah, I mean, but that's like, you know, like you said, that's candy. That's right. Stocking,
but it's still
stuffers are
but
never.
She would have counted that towards the total. I know it. So you know what I mean? Like it would have been, I'm spending this much, because she's very fair and she's very by the book when it comes to that. But then we got one present that when we came out Christmas morning, there was one present that would be open, not wrapped, and that was our Santa Claus present, or whatever you want to call it. And I'm trying to remember if so that would have been like a Metroplex, you know what I mean? Like that would have been something bigger, like a more expensive item. So there was a train one year. It was, you know, something like that, like a bigger Lego set than the other ones. But I still don't think there was ever a play set. I don't remember any toy play sets.
Yeah, I
know you had a lot.
I tell it all the time. I had Boulder Hill. Yep. I had Castle Grayskull at my mom's house. I had Snake Mountain at my dad's house. All the Masters figures at my dad's house. He ended up selling them on me and whatever else, all this and all that and everything else. It's probably why I'm so jaded 40-something years later. But, yeah, no. All right. What does so as a kid and as an adult, what does toy packaging have to draw you in? So as a kid, you go into Toys R Us or KB Toys or whatever. As a kid, you see Transformers, Mask, He-Man, Thundercats, Tiger Sharks, Silverhawks. What is going to draw your eye as the child that you were over everything else? And then the same thing now as an adult.
Probably two things. Number one, the box art is huge. Mm-hmm. You could probably sell me a toy today based on just the box art if it was cool enough. Maybe. That's a strong. That might be a stretch, but it goes a long way. I'm telling you, especially some of the very cool art that you get, like with the G.I. Joe or Transformers line, they can just be make or break right there. I have to be able to see the figure. Mm-hmm. Like if it's a box that's totally shut, that doesn't have a flap for me to view, doesn't have a bubble for me to look through, it's really hard for me to pull the trigger on that, because I mean, nowadays it's different. You have the internet and you can see what the figure is going to look like. But back in the day, that would have been too risky for me to buy something that I couldn't see. So I really like the ones that were boxes that you could flip the top up, or, you know, just your standard bubble figure, you know, as far as like an action figure goes. So being able to see it, the box art, and then Transformers and G.I. Joe were very smart. And I think Turtles had a version of this too. But Transformers, you had the spec what you call it, spec card, tech spec. G.I. Joe, you had like the file card, whatever it was called, personnel file or something like that. And I believe Turtles had they had something you could cut out as well that was like a profile type deal. And so things like that, I think, went a long way as far as like, because you wanted that piece. It was like another bonus. It was like you have the figure, you also have this little thing that you can look at or read or compare stats with. It's like having a baseball card of the figure that you just got. So I think those types of things also helped on the packaging. The packaging today with no plastic sucks. You know what? I'm just going to say that. I know it's better for the world or whatever, but the amount of thievery and switching of names and damage and all that to the packaging and to the action, like, it's just I hope they come up with something different.
So it's funny you say that, because I just got, he's right here next to the radio chick. I just got Core Class Sound Blaster. And Core Class Sound Blaster is one of the Transformers figures that comes in a windowless, plasticless box.
Yeah, Transformers is the major one doing it.
Well, obviously, yes. But my question is, why did they wait 40 years to worry about the environment? We have 40 years of plastic, you know, windowed boxes out there. And you just mentioned it about, you know, the box being one of like Transformers, I believe it was Classics, or it was some sort of special edition. This was back 2008, 2009, 2010. I think it was the commemorative series where it was book box, where it was both. You had the Velcro box, so it looked like a closed box. You pull the Velcro open and you see the figure inside of a window on the inside of the box. But the inside of the box, you had the flap that had all the other information and whatever else. Now, for anything under a Commander class, maybe, or maybe a Voyager. I forget which one it is. Like, I have Commander class Rodimus that my buddy Alex sent me. That's closed box. You don't know what you're getting in. I mean, and that's fine, but like, it's not.
I'd rather. I don't understand like not having. If you're going to have a box like that, they should have part of it that peels off or unvelcros or folds over or whatever. To me, it's just to me. And the other thing without the plastic on it is the sturdiness of the packaging loses so much. Like, it's just so much more flimsy. The corners are so much more damaged and bent. And like I said, it's just one less step for thieves. Like, they just yank that stuff right out.
Oh, yeah. There was all kinds of stories when Hasbro first did this about people yanking Bulkhead's head off when the Bulkhead came out. Yep. All right. Do you open your toys or do you leave them packaged? If you leave them packaged, do you have any specific criteria for that?
All right. So, notwithstanding the last 2 years of my life where I have not had time to open anything, there will be a mass. There's going to be a mass opening, and I've also been saving a lot of them because I want to record the openings and stuff like that. But whatever. So not counting that, if it was just normal stuff, I guess the best way to do this is to look at my Star Wars collection, probably. So almost, I would say 90 to 95% of the actual 3 3/4 action figures I open. Like, they're all open. I can stand them up. I can display them, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
When it comes to different, like, if there were some of those, though, that came in like multi-packs, like diorama almost style, where it was like 3 or 4 character action figures that were in a backdrop of a scene. So let's say, like, in Star Wars, the Mos Eisley Cantina, there's like a multi-pack of the Max Rebo's band that's like 3 or 4 of them, and then the Cantina's in the background. Or there's like the Phantom Menace has one that's Sebulba Sebulba and Jar Jar and something like where the fish is getting caught in Jar Jar's tongue from Watto or Sebulba, whoever it was, and it's like it's actually showing a scene. So stuff like that, if it's got a good plastic window that you can see through, I tend not to open those because they're already like perfectly posed and in this scene, so it looks cool to me. There's some that are more like a limited edition type thing or a commemorative or something that's more rare that I keep sealed, but I prefer to open. Like I think for me the fun is opening them, is holding them, is posing them, is putting them all together. Like a shelf with 25 Luke Skywalkers of different styles standing together is much more impressive to me than 25 carded figures making wallpaper on somebody's wall. But I get why people do it, but I'm not concerned about the value of them. I'm not concerned that I open them and lose some value. I'm not trying to make my fortune off of these things. I mean, somebody might make some money one day off of them, who knows, but they'll curse me because most of mine will be open. And I think that's how they were meant to be. And I guess it also depends on how many you have. Like, for a collection as large as mine, you're going to have some that are sealed still and some that are open, but the majority of mine are open.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, it just depends on what you're collecting and how you want to collect it. That's all it really boils down to. If as a kid or an adult, you were only allowed to choose one toy franchise to collect from, which would it be and why?
I guess Transformers. That's hard though. That's a situation. Well, Transformers is going to be the answer for more than one reason. Number one, because like I said, they have a little bit more stuff that you can do with them. So they're going to keep you entertained longer than a G.I. Joe figure could. I'm sorry. I love G.I. Joe, but how much can you do with the figure? You can pose them a couple different ways. You can put them on a vehicle, put some weapons in their hands, different things like that. That's all you can do. Yeah. All right. Transformers, you can do a lot of different things. Like I said, they had all kinds of different things where you could do more than just transform. They have combiners. They have, all this different stuff. So number one, they do more. Number two, there's more of them. It seems like out there, like Transformers has been around for so long. Like that's why I would, so like the only thing that would come close, like, Motu would be a close pick. I would even though I didn't have very many of them, Mask would be one that I would consider because again, they do different stuff, but you could have all the Mask figures, cars, playsets, etc. Like there wasn't that many produced. like there's a limited number of those that you could collect. So you eventually would be done with the collection and that would be it. So if I could only do one, I want to do one that has a wide range of stuff. And you have Beast Wars, you have alternators, you have Transformers, old school, G1, Prime, like there's so many different versions of Transformers. So you never get bored with them. You would never complete it. Like you could never have every Transformer that's ever made. Like it's just impossible. Star Wars is about
you could try, but you'd be broke.
Yeah, and Star Wars is about the only other one, and then maybe like a G.I. Joe or Power Rangers. Maybe I don't know. They seem like they had a long line. Like the wrestling figures, that'd be hard to get all of those.
Yeah.
So you'd have to pick from one of those that has such a wide array of things to choose from. I say Transformers, even though I own way more Star Wars.
Yeah, but again, if you're only allowed to collect one of these things, you're going to want that thing to be as diverse as you can have it. And like you said,
I think that's something too that if you're a big time collector, like there's people that like toys at certain ages, and then there's very like casual toy collectors, like
right.
Like you're probably a little closer to a casual toy collector. Like you see something that you like, outside of Funko. I'm not talking about Funko, but like
we'll get to
like
that.
certain Transformers you like, so you grab them, but you're not trying. It doesn't seem like you're someone that's like trying to complete a set.
Yeah, no, I was never like. For me, it has always been about character.
Right.
It has always been about like even when I was collecting animated, even when I started collecting back in late 2005, early 2006, because my collection at the time ran from that time to 2011 when I sold it all because of financial things. Mm-hmm. But like I wasn't going after every G1 figure. I was going after the G1 figures I either wanted as a kid or the ones I had as a kid. Mm-hmm. So I went after Optimus Prime. I never had Soundwave, so I went after Soundwave. I went after Blaster because I had him, blah, 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 blah. And now it's all about character, even with Funko. You're never going to see me with a Game of Thrones Funko Pop collection. It just ain't going to happen. I've seen 10 minutes of the first episode of the first season, and all they did was walk. So I'm not buying the Funko Pops for Game of Thrones. But like I said, where'd he go? Oh, here's right here. Core Class Sound Blaster. I like the black and purple. It's Sound Blaster. It's a version of Soundwave, but I like it because it's black and purple and silver. And that's okay, and that's fine. Like, I just have gotten into the 3.0 MDLX line. I have Optimus Nemesis. I have Cliff Jumper in my pile of loot on BigBadToyStore.com. They do not sponsor the show. I have Megatron and Rodimus on pre-order because I like the MDLX. What basically MDLX is, it's more of a... It's not a model kit. It's more of a mini statue where you can pose them, but they don't have alt modes. It's just the robot mode. Right. So for me, with the way that I am at the old ass age that I'm at, I just want to look at the characters. Mm-hmm. I don't want to transform the shit anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have to work to play with the toys anymore. Right.
My point though is like, so there's definitely people that have larger toy collections than me. I'm not like the diehard like. Rich person that has everything, but I have a large toy collection, and with somebody that is as big of a toy collector as I am, my budget makes me face that question a lot. Like I have to decide which line am I collecting, which lines am I collecting, and for example, right now there's a retro style branded Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not talking about Super 7 bullshit. I'm talking about
I know what you're talking about.
Actual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the style of their original Playmates style, etc. Yep. And any other, like, if you would have taken the 17-year-old me, the 18-year-old me, the 23-year-old me, etc., I would be scooping all of those up, right?
Yeah.
But where I'm at as a toy collector, you have to start choosing, because for the longest time there was nothing retro out. There was nothing that was going to scratch that itch, except for a few Transformers, Star Wars, etc. So you didn't have a lot of options. So when something like shows up that would have been like that, you would have been like, oh, I'm getting all of this. Like I have to, like that's, and it wouldn't have mattered what else you were collecting. But I have to limit myself because I cannot collect every line. My budget, my pocketbook will not allow it. There's too much out there. You'd be broken. You'd be, ruin your relationships and not have a house to stay in, and et cetera, et cetera. So like I am very choosy right now. No, well, I say that I'm collecting more things right now than I ever have. But I still have to be very choosy because of that. So like I collect any Star Wars 3.75 action figure no matter what. Like that's just given. Like if there's a new Star Wars figure that I don't have in that size, I'm getting it. All right. Transformers, I will only get something if it's G1-esque. Like it's G1 or it's a G1 look. So like the classics, there was a bunch of the stuff that was done for the War for Cybertron that has more of that look. I'm not getting anything that has any type of Bay look. Like if it looks like something from a movie that Bay was involved with, I'm not touching it with a 10-foot pole. And I would honestly probably sell the ones that I already have that are like that way before I would sell anything else. So I have to be very particular about Transformers. That helps. Motu, I'm picking anything up right now that hits the shelf. If it's Masters of the Universe and it's out, except for the CGI bullshit. Anything else like that's being made in the classic Revelation, New Eternia, any of that stuff, like I'm buying it. G.I. Joe is like the hard one right now for me. Luckily, most of the stuff out there that is in the stores that I go to is Super 7, so I can avoid it. But the classified series is very tempting, but I'm picking and choosing which ones of those I'm getting just because I don't want to start collecting that whole line. And like the Black Series for Star Wars, I'm not collecting that. There's like, even if you're just a Star Wars fan, you cannot collect everything. There's the micro, like machine type spaceships and in all the different vehicles. There's the 3.75 inches. There's the 8-inch, there's all these different series and it's very hard to do all that. So I stick just to the 3.75. So I have to ask myself that question that you kind of asked me. If I can only do one, what is it going to be? And I know it's not just one for me, but it's like, if you only have this, if you want to kind of keep it constrained, which ones are you gotta have? And if you run across the Dungeons and Dragons 1980s retro version and they happen to be like 50% off, then that helps. Because they are all at 50% off at Target right now. So I got to pick up 3 of them. So
that must mean they're very unsuccessful if they're.
The weird thing is Avenger and Dungeon Master are still full price, but the only 3 characters that I've seen, Hank, the little kid, and the acrobat, those are like the only. I haven't seen any of the magician or the blonde chick. I don't know if they didn't make those or if I just wasn't paying attention. But the other 3 were 50% off, so I bought them.
Cool. As an adult, do you prefer vintage toys or modern toys?
A vintage look. It can be a modern toy, but it needs to be a vintage look for me. So I like both. I like so there's certain things that I only want the vintage of, and then there's certain lines that do such a good job of capturing it that I'm willing to do that. But for my like cream of the crop collection, it has to be the original vintage toy, and that's my Heroes and Villains collection. And it cannot be any type of redo, reboot, redone, modernized version. It has to be the original of these guys, and it's one hero and one villain from every 80s cartoon show that I can come up with, and it's ongoing.
All right. Well, I was going to ask you to explain your Heroes and Villains, but I think you just did.
So I can tell you. So like, I have the original Optimus Prime and the original Megatron. That's the hero and villain for Transformers. I have the original Skeletor, the original He-Man, and this is just a separate collection. They're like all together. Yeah. So I have so right now I have G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, Transformers done. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is done. Silverhawks and Thundercats is done. GoBots is done. I have Mask is done. I think Visionaries and Centurions are done. Brave Star's done. Black Star's done. I have one of the 2 for Cops. I have Big Boss, but I don't have Bulletproof yet. I have one of the 2 for Voltron. I have one of the 2 for Dino Riders. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to get the main hero and the main villain for each one. And I know sometimes you have to kind of fudge it, like who's the main hero for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For me, it's Leonardo, but I know that could be debated.
Well, I mean, all 4 of them are heroic, but when you look at
if I have to choose one, it has to be the leader.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, but again, when you look at it really in the context of the 80s and the cartoon series, it was always usually Leo versus Shredder or Splinter versus Shredder, but obviously you're going to pick the turtle over the rat.
Right. And like Voltron, I can't decide what I'm going to do. I have King Zarkon. King Zarkon is my villain, and I can't decide if I need the actual put together Voltron to be the hero or if I pick one of the actual characters. But that's something I got to decide.
If you're, that's
for display purposes,
tough.
It would be much easier to just go with whoever was. Voltron's huge though, so it's kind of hard. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, there are plenty. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah, Voltron is a difficult one. I mean, at least with.
Yeah, and the reason I don't have Bulletproof from Cops is because, number one, there's not a ton of them to choose from on eBay. I don't check all the time, but occasionally I'll go on. But I'm also kind of being somewhat picky because he came with a cloth, like, cape type. Well, like it's more like a trench coat, like a whatever. And a lot of them are missing that, or a lot of them are in bad shape. So I'm trying to be fairly picky because I'm trying to get a good version of each of these. I don't want just like a ramshackled, like wobbly version of whatever. Oh, I guess I have She-Ra done too. I have She-Ra done. That counts.
That's
Cormac and She-Ra. I got those too. So yeah, so that's the ongoing quest, and I've gone a couple years now without actually, well, probably a year and a half without looking. So I haven't made any progress, but it's something that when the occasion comes, like every once in a while, I'll look and see if I can grab one more of something, some set that I want to complete out there. And eventually I'm going to have them all together and displayed, and it's going to be cool, and I'm going to make a video about it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yikes. Bulletproof looks like he ain't wearing no pants. Yeah, there's some versions that aren't very good. Well, I mean, I typed in Cops 1988. I didn't type in Cops and Crooks. I just typed in Cops Bulletproof 1988 and complete one, which is I assume it's the $120.
Yeah, they're expensive too. That's the other reason I haven't bought it.
God, like, come on, people. Like, yeah, you're not going to get the trench coat at $25. Wow, that sucks.
Yeah, so eventually I'll find them.
Oh, man. You're going to have to yard sale that shit. Yeah, absolutely.
No, eventually somebody's going to see my videos and know that I'm missing that and gift it to me. Just kidding.
Well, let's hope. GCRN listeners, if you'd like to gift 1988 Cops and Crooks Bulletproof to Optimus Solo, send your email to feedback@geekcastradio.com.
Yeah, do this.
All right. What is one toy you always gravitate to more than the others? Now, I originally wrote this as a different question, but we're all perverts, folks. And we were all just going down the rabbit hole of being perverted old men when I would read this question. So that's why it's changed to what it is. But basically, what's the one toy you can always play with? What's the one toy out of everything that you gravitate towards the most?
That is a hard question.
Yeah, we're only 14 questions in, folks.
Jesus. I don't know if I have one.
Okay.
That would be hard. The toy line I'm gravitating right now towards is Masters of the Universe, but there's not like I guess it would probably end up being Optimus Prime, but that seems like a cheap answer.
No, I mean, hey, look, if that's the one that you're always going back to, I mean, if that's the one you always feel like, for me, in that case, it would probably be, out of all the toys I had as a kid, thinking of, like, nowadays, what would be the one that would keep me, it would probably be Power Master Optimus, because you could do so much stuff with the original Power Master Optimus Prime.
Yeah, actually, mine probably would be a combiner. Yeah. I don't know which one, but probably a combiner. Technobots, maybe.
Oh, very cool. Defensor, yay!
That's not a Technobots.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Defensor?
No.
Yes, it is. Technobots form. Defensor is Technobots.
Maybe I'm thinking.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought Defensor was the one with the ambulance and the police car and the
yeah, that's the Technobots.
That's the Technobots. The Technobots are God, what's his name?
Oh, Computron.
Yes, Computron. Thank you.
You and your math.
Yeah.
All as I had to look at
Defensor wasn't quite as well put together. The difference was the original combiners were a little bit more flimsy, like Devastator and the aerial bots and the Protectobots and the Stunicons and the Combaticons were all a little bit flimsier. Yeah. And then when they did the Technobots and the Abominus, the Terracons, and those were a lot better put together. They're so sturdy. And then they did the Predacons, and those went back to being they were so big that they actually weren't as sturdy. So there was like a sweet spot with a couple of those combiners that just in combiner form were just so much more stable and sturdy. And that's why I kind of gravitated towards the Technobots and the Terracons.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I got those.
That's right. We'll forgive you.
Even though there are always toy lines that people never purchase, are there any that you specifically and purposefully avoid? This can be a toy line, character, etc.
I mean, you wouldn't catch me dead with a Power Ranger. And the only reason I have a Hot Wheel, the only Hot Wheels in my collection or Matchbox cars or anything like that were either ones that I had as a kid that someone bought me and I had a case of them, which my daughter plays with like crazy right now. Or when I worked at Target, I would buy the Treasure Hunt Hot Wheels when I saw them. Number one, because I had there was a family of Hot Wheel collectors that was like some of the worst people on the planet. So I would buy them so they couldn't. And I know that's mean, but I did it. And I bought them because I knew they had some value. But I was definitely like collectors would hate me for this because I worked at Target. I could open up the brand new box in the back room and take the Treasure Hunt out and just buy it myself. Yeah. And so I did that. And so I have probably like 15 or 20 Treasure Hunts still mint in package. But otherwise, you would never catch me with a Hot Wheel. I would not buy those otherwise. And I don't buy Power Rangers. And let's see, anything else? Oh, I don't buy nothing against them. I just don't buy DC and Marvel figures. It's just a rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
Well, you've never really been a superhero person as long as I've known you. So.
And the only wrestling figures I have are 2 Tatankas, because that could be a rabbit hole that I would get lost in. I would start buying a lot of those if I ever let myself go down that road. So Tatanka's enough for me.
Yeah, there you go. Are there any toys in the past or currently you wish you had not bought them? Are there any toys that you may have sold that you regret letting them go?
Yes, to both. I didn't sell them. My mom sold them in a garage sale, no matter what she says. Don't believe it. She sold a majority, not a majority, maybe half of my He-Man figures in a garage sale, I think, and a few other things that either that or they just disappeared off the face of the earth. I'm pretty sure she sold them in a garage sale when she decided I was too old for toys for just like a brief second, and then she learned the errors of her way. So yeah, there were some that got sold in a garage sale. And then as far as toys that I wish I hadn't bought, when I worked at Target and when I was younger and I didn't have as many bills, I bought like every Transformer that came out. And that was dumb, and I shouldn't have done that because I really don't want any of the ones that are tied to the live-action movies. I just don't like the looks of them. I don't like their faces. I don't like how they look. They're in my collection, but they serve no purpose. I have no sentimental tie to them. I don't have any appeal to them, so I should just sell them. And I will someday.
Yeah, there you go. How large or small is your toy collection? Do your toys take up the whole house, or are they relegated to one room, shelf, or something like that?
Yeah, I don't have a house big enough for my toy collection. The old house kind of we had built in a ledge all around the basement that I had a lot of my Star Wars vehicles on. So that was kind of cool. And in my apartment, I used to have those floating shelves that I'd have some displayed, but no, my toy collection is too big it would take over the whole house. Right now it is currently taking over the whole garage. So there's probably, I don't know, 20 some big Rubbermaid totes full. And that's a lot when it might not seem like a lot, but can I just tell you, I already told you that I open most of my figures, and an open Star Wars 3 3/4 figure takes up no space. Yeah. So to have 20 plus totes of them is a lot. In my opinion, I know there's people that have thousands and thousands and thousands of toys. And that's fine. And their displays are usually pretty epic and make me jealous. But I have, I don't know, a rough estimate, because I haven't updated it since before the move, and I've bought a bunch of stuff down here, is probably about 1,700 figures. And that's about 1,000 Star Wars figures, probably about 400 Transformers, probably about 150 He-Man, a little over 50 G.I. Joes. Everything else is less than 20, but there's another 20 categories I could go into, but they're all less than 20.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, except the starting lineup. I have over 30 of those.
Did they make more than 30? And I know they came back. I know they're
there's a ton of starting lineup. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah. There's probably thousands of them.
Yeah, I only had starting lineup as a kid for the teams and the players that I absolutely loved.
Yeah, mine are almost all Cubs, so all baseball ones except for a few random ones that I got. So yeah, I have a lot of toys.
As long as as long as it was a Red in the 80s, a Red Sox, a Patriot, a Bruin, or a Celtic, I probably had a starting lineup version of it.
Yeah, most of mine are baseball.
So you mentioned a spreadsheet. So is that how you keep track of your collection?
Yeah, I have a couple different ones. I have one that's just for Star Wars, but then I have one that's like a master list. So it's there's like the main page, which just gives me the total count, and then all the total counts for the categories, and then I have a tab for each category, and then I have a tab for the heroes and villains collection and things like that. So it's pretty detailed. Like it has, for example, it'll say if it's loose or if it's in box. It'll say what line it is. It'll say if it's a basic or deluxe or whatever. It'll say what company it's from, Kenner, Hasbro, Mattel, whatever. It'll say the name of the line. It'll say how many I have, the name of it. Yeah, it's pretty detailed.
Very cool, very cool. Yep. How do you display your toys? Like, what is your display style?
I mean, if I had my way, they would all be in glass cases with lighted glass cases that are more like not just like a square pedestal type thing, but like a long horizontal, like you would see like in a jewelry case almost, like a store where all the rings are, something like that, but like multiple shelves. That would be ideal in a perfect world. Right now, there's not much on display. I have a couple little Funko things that I've been gifted that are sitting up here by my lightsaber from Disney. And then I have currently nothing else displayed. I have my bobblehead of myself, and that's it right now. So I don't have anything displayed, but eventually I will. Down the line.
Very cool, very cool. All right, everybody is safe. The wife, the child, the pets, if you have any pets, but everybody is safe. The house is on fire. If you could only keep one toy from your entire collection, what is the one toy you would run back into the house and save?
Are baseball cards toys?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Your baseball card collection's gone. It's been burnt up.
Oh, that is a sad state of affairs.
It's crappy plastic. It's paper.
One of them is very valuable to me, so I would grab that.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
I'm gonna grab I can only grab one thing. Well, that means I can grab my Rubbermaid tote that has all my G1 Transformers in it.
Okay. Well,
I don't have time to open it up and grab one thing. I might as well grab the whole tote. They're all in the same tote. They're all in the same tote.
That's all right. Well, that works. Good thing they are all in the same tote, because if we did this episode 2 years from now, I'm sure you'd have them displayed somehow, and you'd actually have to pick one.
All right. If I had to pick one, it would. I don't know. The obvious answer is Optimus Prime, but I'm gonna say that that's probably not the one I would grab. I would grab either Metroplex or Cliff Jumper. Even though Cliff Jumper's tiny. He was my favorite. He was my favorite as a kid.
Yeah. Plus,
I always thought he was the more. He was always the more deserving. I was always mad that Bumblebee got this way more spotlight, and that's only like exponentially increased over the years. Cliff Jumper was always the cooler one.
Yeah, first voiced by an amazing radio DJ, and then voiced by a wrestler later in life. Oh boy, Cliff Jumper. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick ad break. You can hear some ads and some other stuff. We'll come back to continue on with the questions with Optimus Solo right after this.
Hey, it's Wes from Poppin' Off Toys. Wanted to let you know about poppinofftoys.com. We can be your number one source for Funko collectible figures to add to your ever-growing collection. If you're in Nashville, Tennessee, we actually have a retail store that you can come by, 5916 Charlotte Pike. And for the rest of us, poppinofftoys.com is always open, and you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And the name is just simply Poppin' Off Toys. Thank you so much, and always keep it poppin'.
Because the world needs another movie podcast.
The GeekCast Radio Network presents for your listening pleasure the Cinema Geek.
Hosted by Amanda, Kevin, Matt, and Dan.
Each week we dive headfirst in the landscape of movies as we discuss movie news, play movie games,
go in-depth on reviews,
and even have a top 10 countdown or two.
Also, don't miss our director retrospective series, where we review noted directors' movies film by film. Bottom line is, if you love movies and love podcasts, you need to experience the Cinema Geeks.
You can find us on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, or GeekCastRadio.com.
Oh, hey! I got something!
Since 2009, we have been the premier cartoon podcast here at the GeekCast Radio Network. We are Tooncast. From taking you beyond the cartoons we grew up with to seasonal saucy toon talk, and now we get the origins of toonsters everywhere as we ask guests 30 questions about their cartoon watching experiences, plus so much more. Tooncast is back. Join me, TF2 and Mike, and the rest of the GCRN crew as we give you all the toon talk you will ever need, only on the GCRN, and wherever you consume your podcasts. We are beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination. We are all tunes all the time here on Tooncast.
Yeah. What was that universal greeting again? Never mind, I remember. Ba weep grana, weep nitty bong.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Primal, and be sure to check out my YouTube channel. Join me as I have Transformers discussions, retrospectives, toy reviews, and more. You can also follow me on Twitter at Rodimus Primal, as well as Facebook and Instagram at Rodimus Primal Show. Transform and roll out, and be sure to check out my content till all are one.
Last big party of the summer, folks. Let's go out with a bang.
Like science fiction? Of course you do, or you wouldn't be listening to the GeekCast Radio Network. Well, the Marku 42's Universe podcast is an award-winning sci-fi radio show that's been around for over 10 years. We cover everything from Doctor Who to the MCU to pop culture and everything in between. A new show drops on Tuesday mornings on the GCRN website and all of the major podcast platforms. So listen to the Marku 42's Universe podcast from the universe and beyond.
Hello, all sentient beings. Want the latest on everything going on in the Transformers multiverse? Check out the Transmissions Podcast Network. We've got weekly podcasts covering everything from Alpha Trion to Omega Supreme. From old school G1 all the way up to Cyberverse and beyond. And you don't want to miss Empire of Rust, the world's first and only Transformers live play role-playing game podcast. If you love Transformers, there's something for everyone at transmissionspodcast.com.
So let's say you're looking for a podcast of your favorite 80s comic books, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, He-Man, etc. Where are you going to go to find us?
Welcome to Star Joe's Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan.
And I'm Chuck. That's right, everybody. We're the Star Joes. We host a podcast called Star Joe's Podcast, where we talk about your favorite comic books, your favorite toys of all the 80s properties.
Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Mask, Thundercats, Voltron, you name it, we cover it. If it's in the 80s, we'll cover it at some point.
Yeah, so what you want to do to find us, you can go to iTunes, you can go to www.starjoes.com.
And remember, the Force will be with you.
Because knowing us is half the battle.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Car.
Download this show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
One of the primary themes of ToyCast is that we focus on throwing it back to the past. We are who we are today because of the nostalgic memories and experiences from our childhood. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this show if it weren't for the toys that made us so addicted to nostalgia. Throwback Toys Chicago is your primary go-to collectible store to reclaim the toys that drove those memories and experiences. Specializing in action figures from all of your favorite toy lines like Star Wars, G.I. Joe, He-Man, Transformers, Silverhawks, Ghostbusters, TMNT, Mask, and more, get your dose of nostalgia with a shop run by collectors for collectors. Whether you are looking for a loose G.I. Joe ice cream soldier, a packaged Leonardo, recent Star Wars Black Series figures, or an AFA-graded Boba Fett, Throwback Toys Chicago is all about throwing you back into your geeky obsession with toys. Visit the shop at 1450 North Ashland Avenue in Chicago, Illinois, just 2 blocks south of Ashland and North Ave. Call the shop at 847-830-1031 or email them at tbtchicago@gmail.com. Visit them and give Throwback Toys Chicago a chance to throw you back to your childhood.
Discover a world of vintage and modern toys that's more than meets the eye with the Triple Takeover Toycast.
Hosted by toy writers and photographers Toy Box Soapbox, 6O, and TF Square 1, this informal and chilled out series of discussions cover everything from vintage Transformers to Mask, Diaclone, Microman, and more, be it nostalgic or current.
Whether you're a seasoned collector or a casual robot enthusiast, all are welcome.
Triple Takeover Toycast.
All right, we are back from the ad break, and on the flip side of question 20, number 21, is here's the Toy Box Challenge. Now, I assume this is inches. I don't do metrics. I don't do measurements. I don't do math. But you get one 18 by 18 by 18 box. The only toys you can keep have to fit in the box. What can you pack into it?
18 by 18.
By 18.
18. No clue. All right. I can fit all of my heroes and villains in there. So we're putting Cobra Commander and Duke. They don't take much size at all. They can fit in there. Matt Tracker and Miles Mayhem are super tiny, so that could fit into any box.
Yep.
He-Man and Skeletor are a little bigger, but they'll fit. Leonardo, Shredder, Optimus Prime, Megatron, Monstar, Quicksilver, they're all going in there. Mumra, Lino are pretty big, but they'll fit in there. Psykill Leader 1 going in there. My 2 Visionaries, my 2 Centurions, my 2 Brave Star figures, my 2 Black Star figures, Hordak, She-Ra, King Zarkon.
So basically your entire collection outside of Star Wars.
No, these are just the heroes and villains.
Right.
And then once they're in there, I should have some room because there was no like big vehicles, no big play sets, nothing of that sort. So after that, I'm going to put a few of my Cubs starting lineup figures, basically like Ryan Sandberg and Andre Dawson in there. And then I will add in my Star Wars characters that were convention exclusives or like some of the more rare store exclusives, because those are just still the 3 3/4 inch figures, but they are in cards. So that'll take a little more space. And then I think I will have room for my one of my 2 Tatanka figures. I'll have to pick which one is the best and throw him in there.
Very cool, very cool. So the starting lineup stuff, no Sosa, huh?
No, it was all it was all stuff that I got like I didn't get, my mom or whoever in my family got them for me. And this is like 1987 to 1989-ish, 1990 maybe.
Yeah, I don't. Outside of Sammy and outside of Rizzo and who's the other one? Bryant. Those are the 3 main Cubs
these were all
players
old school.
Yeah. Like, whoever the Ozzie Smith of the Cubs was in the 80s.
Yep, Sandberg and Dawson, the 2 Hall of Famers. I'd throw them in there.
Yep. All right. This isn't an age-old question, but it usually elicits some sort of cursing by some people, and it is an F word. So are you a Funko fan?
I am indifferent. I have some. I think they're neat in some ways because they represent all kinds of different things. I mean, you can get them on just about any type of movie, TV show, anything that was in pop culture, obviously. So I have a few. I have maybe like 3 or 4 Star Wars ones. I have a Roddy Piper one, and I think I have something else. I don't know if it's a He-Man one or no. I don't think so. I think it's just mainly Star Wars and wrestling. My wife has a few though. She has like a Supernatural one, a Batman one, something Harry Potter ones. So I don't have anything against them. I was never like necessarily a collector of them. I didn't go out and buy them like for everything or whatever, but I have a few and I don't dislike them. I think they're I don't understand the hate for them necessarily, but at the same time it's not something that I'm myself going out of my way to collect. There's too many of them, and when I'm a collector, if there's something that's just like something that you would never even come close to getting all of or something like that, it turns me away from it a little bit.
And see, for me, that's why I love the company so much as far as what they've released since I first learned about them mid-2014 because our buddy Doug, who does Talking About My Generation, he had a bunch of them back then. And when I went to California in 2016, the best part about that trip was staying with Doug and Doug's wife at the time. They're still married, obviously, but at the time of the trip is what I mean to say. He had a whole bunch of them, and kind of, as soon as it's funny because I don't even have this one. As soon as I saw the Funko Pop Baby Groot in like Christmas potted plant or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I got back to Kentucky in 2017, and I started with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Batgirl 66, and a bunch of others, and I haven't looked back since. And you're right, they do, but I'm not collecting Star Trek ones because I'm a casual Star Trek fan, so I don't feel like I need to have those. I don't collect all of the Star Wars ones. What I like about them is that you're going to get something from somewhere that you don't ever. Did we ever have cereal toys, like actual action figures or toys of like Lucky the Leprechaun or Trix Rat? No, I don't remember it from the 80s. I remember them being on the boxes of cereal, but I don't remember there being like actual action. So they have, those and that kind of stuff. So that's why I like Funko, is that I go after the stuff that you really can't get anywhere else. And that's what makes them cool.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. What was the most money you spent on a toy?
I'm not a big spender on toys. So let me think about that for a second. I believe maybe the most expensive thing that I've bought. Let's see. Thinking here. I would guess that the most expensive stuff I bought has been a couple of the hero and villain things that I've bought because I've had to go to eBay, just some of them that I didn't already have. So there was probably 1 or 2 that were somewhere in the realm of $100, maybe $125. I have a real problem spending anything above $100 on a toy, so it would be hard. So maybe a couple of those eBay like just rare purchases, but otherwise, if it's that much, like even the Transformers that are like $50 on like store shelves, retail shelves, Target, Walmart, whatever. If it's like the leader class or above, Titan class or something, and it's above $50, I typically, unless it's just blowing me away, I'm not going to buy it, and I'm going to hope that eventually it goes on clearance.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, listeners, you all know I repeat myself a lot, so if you don't want to hear this story again, had a fairly decent job that was paying me a decent amount of money, from 2005 to 2010, and I spent, I think, in total, somewhere around $400 for a original G1 Optimus, Soundwave, and Blaster.
Each, or $400 for all 3?
All 3.
Okay, that's a little better.
Yeah.
That's still pretty expensive
for all 3. Yeah, Optimus and Blaster, I think, were $125, and then Soundwave was a little more.
I hope they were complete and in good condition.
Oh yeah. Okay. They were. Yeah. I don't have them now, but yeah, they were at the time. And then the most, and of course you're going to be paying premium for this because it's a exclusive, whatever else. But the most I ever paid was $800 for the entire 2008 Shattered Glass BotCon box set and the 3 or 4, whatever it was, additional exclusive figures that are not in the box set. And in that set was Shattered Glass Rodimus, which is a repaint of Classics Rodimus. So it's basically just black and purple. Mm-hmm. What's so crazy, and the reason why this is the reason why I'm bringing this up, is because you go on eBay now, you can't find that just the Rodimus by himself. You can't find it for anyone asking under $1,700. It's crazy. Not that I want it back or anything, but I'm just like, I'm curious. It's been almost a decade or so since, it's been a decade. Yeah, 2008, 2018. It's been over a decade since that happened, and I'm like, I wonder. Oh, wow, yikes.
Now, how much did you sell that Rodimus for?
I ended up selling the whole set. I think I got $600 for it, so I only lost $200. It's not bad.
That could have been worse.
So,
well, you could have also made $1,700 on it.
Yeah, if I had kept the damn thing, yeah. Of course, if I had kept it, I would have just kept it. I wouldn't have, Yeah. All right, on the flip side, what is the cheapest toy you bought, or what was the best deal you ever got for a figure that may have been worth quite a bit more than what you paid for it?
Well, a couple times here. Let's see. At the same time I was looking for some of those Hero and Villain edition to my collection on eBay, I found somebody that was selling, same seller that was selling basically their whole collection, or a whole collection that they came out. I don't know if it was theirs or one that came about, but of He-Man figures, all the original vintage ones. It wasn't like every single one, but it was a lot of them. And at the time, it was an auction one on eBay, and the prices were not very high, so I put in bids on almost every one of them, just low bids, because I'm like, well, if this is as low as they're priced, I'll at least try. And I got a couple of them for like $1 or something, or $2 and something. So that was kind of crazy. And then I was at a flea market. Our town used to have this massive flea market for the whole county or whatever. And there was a guy that was selling the He-Man line that was like it wasn't the current Classics line. It was like a kind of like a Classics line that came out back in the mid 2000s ish, I want to say. And he had like maybe 8 or 10 of them, and he sold them for way less than he could have. It was like the last day of the flea market right before they were closing up, and I think he just didn't want to like pack them up and go back with them. Nice. So I think I spent less than $50, and I got like, I don't know, between 8 and 12 figures. So that was pretty good.
That is awesome. That is very cool. Yeah, it's always good when you can get deals.
But when you get a 1980 He-Man figure, it wasn't He-Man, it was like, I can't remember which ones. It might have been Ram Man, and like there was like 3 figures that I got for less than $2 a piece or something. It was stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that is very cool though.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. Oh, let's see. What modern and or vintage toy lines are you collecting right now?
I think I've probably already mentioned it, but I am collecting the Revelations or the Masterverse He-Man stuff. I'm collecting what's the other one called? Like Classics? The
whatever
Origins
it is, yeah,
or something.
The Origins, the Origins.
So both He-Man lines that are currently going, I'm collecting both of those. I did buy 3 of those Dungeons and Dragons retro lines. I buy all Star Wars stuff, so some of those are retro, some of them aren't. And then, the Transformers lines that are basically updates of G1 stuff, I always buy.
Studio series.
Yeah, any of that type of stuff. Yep. Unless it's the core figures. I don't understand the core figures. I know a lot of people like them. I know you have some. I know people online go nuts.
I only have one.
I just can't. If it's a core figure, it better be one of the figures that was like originally also a tiny figure. Like, so like I picked up the wheelie one because he was originally one of the smallest figures you could get. So if it was like one of those Bumblebee, Cliff Jumper, Wind Charger, wheelie, those. But when it's like Megatron or Optimus Prime in a core size, that makes no sense to me. So I avoid those. The
only one that I wanted, which I have, I'm holding it in my hand right now, was the Sound Blaster. So basically the black and purple Soundwave. Yep. And, I actually
saw him.
Soundwave,
saw him yesterday at the store, and I thought about you. I didn't pick him up though. Like I do the small ones if it like I did all the Robot Hero ones, like the little pose Robot ones and stuff like that. But when it's the core figures, like to me it's weird because those same figures are available in the right size. So why do I want to buy the miniature version of them in the regular toy line? I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me with Core Class, it's more of specifically to Soundwave, Sound Blaster, even though it's a Sound Blaster and not Soundwave, but technically they're kind of sort of whatever. Mm-hmm. Like when you first saw Soundwave in Generation 1, like Spike trips over him. Oh, what's this tiny cassette player? And the juxtaposition of the mass shifting size between Spike as a human and Soundwave as a micro cassette. Like, you know, that was like, oh, it basically fits in the palm of his hand. This thing obviously fits in the palm of my hand. Like, yeah, so that's that. And I'm only keeping this in cassette. I'm only keeping this in tape deck mode. I'm not like, I didn't buy this for the Sound Blaster robot mode because, like you're saying, if I want a Soundwave or a Sound Blaster or whatever, I'll go out and get the actual full-size robot. But for a cassette, like somebody to walk into my apartment and see, oh, you have a mini cassette, blah, blah, blah. You know, what's that? You know, somebody that doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like, so whatever kind of thing.
Yeah,
so,
it's just maybe I'm too stuck in my nostalgic old person ways, but like you know, back in the day in G1, they wouldn't have done that. They wouldn't have put out a Soundwave in the same size as Wheelie. They just put him out in the regular size, and each character had one size available, and that was it. And I kind of like that. So, anywho.
Do you visit toy shows or conventions? When you visit toy shows or conventions, do you have a typical methodology? Do you bring a certain amount of money for what you're looking for, et cetera, et cetera?
This will be a quick one. I've only gone to one convention. I went to a Star Wars convention that was in Chicago that was pretty cool with my friend Matt, and that's the only convention I've ever been at. I took a certain amount of money with me. That was all I was going to spend. And we just went from one end of it to the other. And, you know, if there was we were pretty relaxed about it. If there was something somebody really wanted, you know, we kind of planned our day accordingly as far as order of things. But I just was basically going through all the different little booths and looking for stuff that I had either never seen before or convention exclusives that somebody was selling or just, you know, something that was unique because everything else I already have. So I'm just kidding, but it seems like it. So.
He has all the toys, folks. There's no more reason for him to buy all the toys because he owns all of them.
But I do. But the weird thing is I have some type of. I don't have like a full-on photographic memory, but I have like a variation of photographic memory. So basically, if you show me a 3 3/4 inch Star Wars action figure, or if you show me a baseball card, I know if it's in my collection or not, even though there's 1,000 Star Wars figures in my collection, and you would think that would be hard to keep track. And even though I have like over, whatever, I don't know, 30,000, 50,000 baseball cards, whatever it is. Like, I still know if it's something in my collection based on the fact that I've seen it before in my collection.
Right.
So when I'm going through those conventions, I can just kind of look and I'm like, have it. What's that?
Yeah. It's like, got it. Don't got it. I need it.
Mine.
Gotta get it. Mine.
So like I think at that convention, I picked up a couple of those. Like I picked up some convention exclusives. I think there was like a George Lucas figure that I hadn't had. There was a few of like the prototype figures that I didn't have. And you know, otherwise it was just like different con exclusive figures that I kind of grabbed.
Yeah, absolutely. So this isn't something we've ever really talked about, but your baseball card collection, what are you going to do? Like, what's your ultimate goal with that?
Right now I'm just indexing it all online. There's a website that you can index it, and it tells you like the most recent average of eBay prices that card is sold for and things like that. And it keeps a tally of how many you have, what the value is, what the top 50 most valuable are, et cetera, et cetera. So I was in the process of trying to get all of that loaded into this website before we moved, and I'm not quite done, so I need to eventually pick that up and get it all complete. And then I don't know, I'll sit on them for a while. Maybe I don't know if I'll ever sell them or not, or if I'll just pass them down to whoever wants them after me.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's not worth that much, but there's some cards in there that are pretty good. I have Ryan Sandberg, who was my favorite player growing up, who was a Hall of Fame player. I have his rookie card autographed that I got at spring training one year, and it was the year he made the Hall of Fame, so he inscribed it with HOF and whatever year it was, 05 or 04, something like that. So that one's pretty cool. It's a unique card and, probably one of a kind type thing. So stuff like that I would probably hold on to, but I don't know. I have some interesting cards that are worth some money, and then, like most people that collected cards in the 80s and 90s, a whole bunch of cards that are worth nothing.
Yep. Oh, baseball cards. Oh, boy. What do you think it is about our generation that causes our childhood toys to mean so much more to us than, say, for instance, our parents' generation?
Do we think that? Do we think that the parents' generations don't value their toys? I don't know.
Did they have toys?
Yeah, they did. They had different ones.
Squirt guns and sticks and rocks and
they had the 12-inch GI Joes, and they had the original.
Oh, those are dolls. Those aren't toys. Those
the
are
original
dolls.
Star Wars figures, and they had the original Planet of the Apes figures, things like that. I just think for us, there was such, and I know some of it was a marketing campaign, some of it was strategic, but there was a business model that made us connected to those toys. There wasn't just toys. Like, for example, for some people that would, I don't know, this is a bad example because Barbie's super popular, but back in the day, if you had a Barbie doll, that was the end of it. Like, it was the doll, and whatever attachment you had, you had to, based on what was available for you through that action figure or through that doll line, through that toy line. And that was it. But, during the 80s, especially for boys, you had the comic books that were connected. You had the cartoons that were connected. In some cases, you had some either animated or live action movies that were connected. So it wasn't just like it was a toy we played with. It was something we watched on TV, something we consumed, something we read about, something we pretended to be or made our own stories about, etc. And then the other thing that obviously is not, again, it's all business related, etc., but it's not like a lot of these lines just existed in the 80s and disappeared and never were heard from again. There was those, but there was so many of them that originated in the 80s that have sustained and kept in pop culture, either just because they've always had properties that current shows, etc., or like a lot of the business people have done, tried to bring them back when these kids were parents so that they would buy them for their own kids based on nostalgia. That's why you get a lot of the reboots, is just to try to cash in on the nostalgia. But when you have something like Star Wars, Transformers, there's almost never been a time where they haven't been on toy shelves. So it's not like it's something that's gone away and you forget about it. It's always there. So you always see it. You're always aware of it, things of that nature. And then we've had, the progression of more shows, more movies, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's just something that's easier to gravitate towards. And I think regardless of if it's toys or if it's other types of memories, I think all human beings have a attachment to things that they enjoyed when they were children. It's a time when you don't have responsibilities. Hopefully it's a time where you don't have as much stress for the average child or et cetera. I mean, I know there's stuff that happens, whatever, but you don't have bills, you don't have a job, you don't have responsibilities, you don't have broken relationships and things like that. As far as significant others yet, you aren't even interested in the opposite sex usually by that, at that point. So it's just like, it's a reminder of a time where life was easier. So whether it's action figures, whether it's computer games, whether it's Atari, whether it's something you did outside with your friends, whether it's card games, board games, or whatever, I think all people have some attachments to stuff they enjoyed as a kid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, while, yes, as you said, there were toys before the 80s, however, the 80s was the decade that basically launched what toys would become 40 years from it, today. Like you said, Transformers, Star Wars, even Masters, even He-Man, because there was one time so far in 40 years, I think. Yeah. The only time that we didn't really have He-Man stuff was after that crappy New Adventures show up until 2002.
And the other thing is it's a wholly unique generation. I know that's weird. It's something that you'd say, oh, you're just saying that because you're part of it. But I do believe it is. I believe it's the only generation of kids that action figures held the amount of prominence in the child's life as they did with us, because and before us, there just wasn't as many action figures around. So it would have been impossible. There just wasn't stuff. So kids were exposed to a variety of things. Like I said, whatever games they played in their yard, whatever Commodore 64, Atari, and television games were out, stuff like that might be, but there wasn't action figures like there was. We had a big boom of action figures, obviously, in the 80s. And although we did have, the beginnings of the Nintendo and the video game thing, it was not what it is today. Like, yes, video games existed, and yes, I played the heck out of some Mario and some Zelda and things like that, and then in high school, obviously Bond and all those other things. But we did not dedicate the number of hours to video games as children do today. And I really honestly think that the action figures that are present on shelves today, when in our time, it was 100% for us. All right.
Yeah.
Every action figure that was on that shelf was marketed, directed, put out there, built, designed, developed for kids. And that is not true anymore because they know the amount of collectors that are out there. They know the segment of population and the money that collectors will spend, and they are gearing things towards adults, towards parents, towards collectors, as well as kids. I'm not saying there's not toys out there directed at kids, but it's probably closer to like a 50-50, 60-40, something like that. And then on top of that, so they're not as developed for just kids, and the kids that they are developed have a lot more competition for their time now because of this sheer amount of hours that they're spending on video games, on the internet, on their smartphones, on everything else that's going on. So I don't think any generation will have the experience with action figures that we did.
Yeah, exactly. And ladies and gentlemen, he's kind of already answered question 32, so I don't know if I'm going to skip that one or not. No, it's fine. You haven't seen them, so you don't know, but essentially, you're very close. What is your motivation for purchasing toys to display, play, fiddle? Describe your collecting style. Are you a completionist, a storyteller, a cherry picker, or otherwise?
Well, I have a disease.
Yes.
My name is Optimus Solo, and I am a collector. No, so I don't know. Most of it's because I'm a collector, and because two reasons. I was brought up as a collector. Like, we all had our collections as kids, my brother, my sister, and I. At the time, it was small, simple stuff like keychains and shot glasses and spoons and whatever souvenirs you would buy at wherever you went type stuff. But I just have always been in it, and it's weird because I can see it in my daughter. She's only 2 years old. But I've always been someone that would prefer to grab like a completionist in certain respects. Now, it's not true with all of my collections. Like, there are some that I just know that it's physically impossible or monetarily impossible to do that. So I'm a little bit more of a cherry picker with what lines I do. But certain lines, I'm definitely there's definitely a goal of having everything that I want for that line and to complete my vision of it. Now, whether it's going to sit in a box forever, whether it's going to be displayed, whether it's going to be something I make videos of, however I'm going to do with it is secondary. And then I also have a second part. So it's not only that I'm a collector, but it's also, there's like a not retrograde amnesia. I know that's the phrase that retrograde usually goes with, but there's some type of thing that, the last time that my father was alive, the last time that we were a complete family, the last time that, I had the innocence of childhood, I was 9-10 years old. So if there is something that is from that time or before, I have a undeniable connection and attachment to that I'm not going to let go of without like some type of physical, like some therapy or some counseling that I'm not going to. So like certain things like will just always have that attachment to me from a mental standpoint. Like it's the, whatever TV shows I was watching at that point, whatever cartoons, whatever movies I was into, whatever sports I was into, that stuff will always be attached to me. So I have like a deep attachment to these things. Plus I'm a collector, and that's not a good recipe for your budget or your pocketbook.
Yeah, no. See,
but I'm not like the collectors that I see online, man. Nothing against them. I'm in a lot of different groups, whether it be social media groups or whatever, that I'm exposed to a lot of collectors, and they're buying stuff like nonstop. Like everything that comes out, they buy. Like they don't miss a figure, and I do not have it that bad, thankfully. No, I mean, more power to them, but I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing for me. At 43 years old, I don't need to play with the toy. I don't need to transform the toy. maybe I'll pose it if it's posable, but I don't need to have that play factor anymore. Hence why I have a Funko Pop collection, because all I do is take a picture of it in the box, take it out of the box, take a few pictures, put it back in the box. I don't have to transform it. I don't have to move it. I don't have to do anything. It just stands there. Same thing with the Jada Toys Nano Metal Figs, which are essentially just, I'm going to drop this, folks, so be forewarned. That's a die-cast metal Rhinox. Die-cast construction. It's a lost art. When I saw the Jada Toys Nano Metal Fig Transformers Series 1 and Series 2, I'm like, oh, cool. I get to have the characters without having to do any of the work that I did as a kid, playing with them, transforming them, whatever. So I get to enjoy the character. That's what it all comes down to me, is characters. Like you said, you're not going to buy every figure. You're not going to, you don't have the need to get everything. I don't have the need to get it. Like I said before, there are plenty of Funko Pop lines out there that I am not collecting because I have no interest in them.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to get them to get them. I'm not a Funko hoarder. I know plenty of people who are Funko hoarders, but I'm not one of them.
And I am someone that would open them and pose them and set them up and look at them and et cetera, et cetera. And even being that type of person, I still have maybe 200, maybe that might be 100 to 200 figures that I haven't opened yet from the last 5 years because I just haven't got to it yet.
Yeah.
So,
well, and again, the perfect thing, I know this is probably sacrilege to you since it's not red and black and it's not a number 23, but I have purple and yellow here, number 32, Funko Pop Magic Johnson. And like you said,
I like Magic Johnson.
Take it out of the box, take a couple pictures of it and whatever else, put it back in. Like the Funko Pop boxes and the inserts that they use, it's the easiest toy packaging to unbox the thing and then rebox the thing. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about, oh my god, I have to cut these horrible whatever.
That is the downside of the plastic
recyclable. Well, yeah, the plastic bubbles, but I just opened the Core Class Sound Blaster. He had some sort of recycled wire holding him in the little, and I'm like, this feels like, an electrical cord that I'm cutting here. Like, what's going on, Hasbro?
Two things, though. Number one, you can check out Geek Showcase, the Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter account, and you'll see a picture that was just posted of all of the most recent He-Man figures that are still in the boxes. Not quite all of them, but maybe 90% of them. So you can see that I'm way behind in opening. And the other thing is, even when I do open them, even if it is a plastic bubble type, shell or carded figure, I still have the card of those figures for almost every toy ever, going back to the original G1 Transformers. I kept them. I kept them for the art. I kept them for whatever was present on the back. The plastic bubbles for 90% of them have been removed carefully, like by a scalpel, an X-Acto knife or something, the razor blade. But I still have the card for all of them.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Have you ever purchased a toy for a child with the ulterior motive of playing with it yourself?
Well, that would be something that I would just now be experiencing within the last 2 years. I don't buy them so I can play with them, no. I haven't bought anything for my daughter that was bought so I could play with them. But I do, I have bought things from a completionist standpoint for her. So, for example, we bought her I think she picked them out maybe when she was shopping one time. I don't know, it's probably 8 inches or something stuffed animal, but it was a Care Bear. And then the next time I was at Target, I picked out all of the other Care Bears in that line that she didn't have. And we've been giving them to her for different holidays, just so she can have them
nice.
all. So I will do that. And I will buy her something that's more of the nostalgia thing, like a Care Bear or a Pound Puppy, before I'll buy her just a random thing. But I don't do it with the intentions of myself playing with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more, and you may or may not do this once she gets older, but it's more of if Steve Megatron or Michael Wilson or whomever go into a store, they find a thing that their child wants, and then all of a sudden they look at it and like, I want to play with this too. So,
I did play with her. I did play with her, my wife's Light Bright that we got out and showed her for the first time. I did play with
Well,
that,
of course. I mean, anybody's going to... I don't care how old you are. You put a Light Bright in front of anybody that knows what it is, which most people at this point should know what a Light Bright is. They're going to want to play with it. Absolutely.
I had to show her how it's done.
They're just... Yeah. Oh, wow.
I had to show her how to put it together.
Oh, jeez. Wow. Oh, Lord. Some people were so sheltered back in the 80s. That's not cool. That's not good.
No, I meant my daughter. I had to show my daughter how to put it together. My wife knew how to put it together.
Well, yeah, but your daughter's only 2. I mean, I know she's learning and everything else, but yeah, that's a teachable moment there. Do you do any toy modifications or customs, painting, building? Okay. All right.
I understand that people do it, and I understand that it's fun for them, and I understand why they do it. But for me, it's like against everything that I stand for when it comes to toys. I not only do not customize things, I do not buy third party or knockoffs or anything. It is the main line. It is how it was sold, how it was designed. That is the only thing I will have.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and Steve, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I think it's fun that some people do that, and I think that's cool.
No, I know you do. Yeah, no, I know you do. But the reason why I'm saying, Steve, I'm sorry, but Steve is working on, or he has been working on, a certain particular version of Beast Wars Megatron. It is pre-Beast Megatron, what he was like on Cybertron before the Beast Wars thing. Mm-hmm. So in that case of a figure that has never existed to this point, I think that's cool that he's going to take... Yeah, so
I would have to, in order for me to ever get down that road, and I did used to do models, like, because my dad did so many model airplanes that I did some model planes and model cars when I was like 9 or 8 or whatever, and I was just so bad at it. But compared to my dad, and that's because I was 8 or 9. But in order for me to do it custom, if I ever went down that road, first of all, it would have to be like a duplicate figure that I owned. Like, it would have to be.
Oh yeah, no, we're not
doing it to my main figure. And like,
you would go out and
and my other, Fridley Scent, Matt, he did some cool stuff where he was making his own action figures by doing the 3D printing and the painting and the cutting and all of that kind of stuff, and that's cool. I am not good enough, nor do I have the time to invest in something like that with all of my other things going on. So I could never get down that road, I don't think. I am very much against knockoffs and third parties. That's more of a actual like belief, like a stance that, and not that I'm against somebody else buying them or owning them. You should buy whatever you like and have fun with whatever you want to have fun with. But for me, I don't want to support the non-main line. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the customization stuff is obviously you're going to buy if you want it customized, like you said, you're not going to use the one figure, like G1 Optimus Prime. If you wanted to paint that as Nemesis Prime, black and teal, you're going to go out onto eBay or wherever and find another G1 Optimus Prime. You're like, for me right now, I want to, because I understand, at least I think I understand how the license that Funko has for Transformers stuff is they can only make designs that are toy accurate. And the toy accuracy, Soundwave's visor is yellow. It's not red like it is in the show. So for me, I'm going to end up going onto GameStop's website, purchasing another 10-inch giant-ass Soundwave, because that's the one that I want customized, and I'm just going to have somebody paint the visor red to make it show accurate. So, I don't know. It is. I do absolutely love, the fact that there are, and these third-party companies aren't just doing this to do it. I mean, Hasbro must give them permission because, if they didn't, there would be you'd hear about Hasbro lawsuits every hour on the hour.
It's also different today than it was back in the 80s when you'd get like the knockoff from another country or somebody that was trying to take advantage of the show by calling it something like close to it or whatever. And
go farts.
or something like that. But and I don't know. It's not that I have something against the companies, I guess. It's just, I don't know. For me, like I would have a hard enough time collecting the mainline stuff of whatever I'm collecting, so I don't want to like add to the stuff I'm collecting by starting to open the door to knockoffs or third parties. And I will never, ever, 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 ever buy a Super 7 anything.
No.
Screw that company.
Yeah, screw that company, screw that guy that runs that company, and screw that company's prices.
He might be a nice guy, but the prices are absolutely ridiculous.
I've heard rumors and stories about that guy. The
fact that people pay that amount of price for the action figures that the size that they are, I don't care if it's the only Silverhawk available for you to buy. It's maddening that you're supporting the pricing of that. And I know it costs more because it's more of a custom and less of a they're not making millions of them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just can't support action figures that are that size selling for over $20 a piece.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So as I alluded to earlier, you've kind of answered this already, but question 32, do you think toy companies should specifically have adult collector toys, child toys, or find a way to mix both? You've kind of already talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that I would probably prefer, though, if they would keep the lines separate. I think it's weird sometimes. Sometimes they don't do a good job when they're mixing it or blurring it. And I would prefer that a line stuck to a certain type. Like, I'm not a big fan of what Transformers does sometimes, where they have like a classics or an origins or a retro line, and then they have like G1 stuff, and then they have Bayverse stuff, and then they have Unicron trilogy stuff all mixed within that. Like, I get what they're doing, and I know some people probably enjoy it, but I would rather there be a separate line for each, like, or something. I don't know. And then I think there should be the main line that's for the kids, and it's pretty obvious, like, what that is. Like, the buzzworthy Bumblebee stuff is all kid-like to me. The new line for the new movie with the Beast Wars, Rise of the Beast, is all kid-like looking, so I think that's a good job. And then I think there should be that collector's line, like we had with the Studio series for a while, or for the classics line or the origins line of the different properties. I think that's the collector's line, and then the other one is the kids line.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd like them to keep a little more defined line between the two.
Yeah, I mentioned this recently. Again, sorry listeners for repeating myself, but I watch a lot of Instagram stories, and every now and then ads will pop up, even though I follow Hasbro and I follow Hasbro Pulse on Instagram and everything else. Just sometimes it'll be an ad instead of a whatever. But in the ad, it'll say, like, parents, swipe up now to get Tarn for your kids. And I'm sitting here thinking, what parent today is teaching their children about the villain Tarn from the comic book? Look, I love that they made Tarn. Absolutely. It's amazing. He was a great character in the IDW comics, but no child should want that toy.
Unless you just think he looks cool, I guess.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. Yeah. Do you have a "my parents got rid of my toys" story, which you kind of do?
Just the garage sale where I lost. I wish I knew which ones I lost, but there was a few Turtles, He-Man's, G.I. Joe type characters I think that I lost. I don't know if I lost any Silverhawks, but I know they didn't touch any of my Transformers. They knew better.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Gee, this is going to be interesting for you because I think I already know the answer to this one. Do you feel you are coming to an end of your active collecting? If so, what has signified this phase for you? Was there ever a moment when you were completely done with toys? And have you ever considered stopping as a collector or even selling the whole collection?
There's never been a time where I've been done with toys. That answers that. I've never not been in the market for toys. Part of that was because I worked at Target for 10 years. But there have been times where I go in and out of phases for certain properties. So there have been times where I've no longer been collecting Transformers and I was only collecting Star Wars, and then there would be a time where I'd kind of phase in and out of the Star Wars a little bit, and Transformers would come out with a line that would grab my attention. So I have kind of phased in and out of different lines, but I have never stopped collecting altogether. And maybe unfortunately, I don't know. I think currently I'm collecting more than I ever have before, and I probably need to stop that. But I would say I'm only because of the amount of lines that are out there between the regular Star Wars figures that are out there right now, the Studio Series, and a few of the other Transformers lines, both of them He-Man lines, the classified for G.I. Joe. I'm staying away from the Retro Turtles because I can't add another one. So it's just like there's too much out there right now, and I really need to like scale back and stop at some point. But I don't know. I could see myself getting down to the point where I just do Motu maybe, or I just stick with Star Wars. I don't know. Would I ever sell my collection? I don't think so, minus the Bayverse Transformers. I would sell those, and I don't know if I would sell any of the Unicron Trilogy ones that I have or not. I am not selling any of my G1 or any of the vintage toys for sure, or any of the classic lines for now. Maybe someday. I could probably piecemeal them all off and do an auction like whatchamacallit did and make enough money to pay for a whole bunch of stuff. But that would that's a lot of work, and that would require me to pull the trigger on that. Maybe someday. Never know.
Yeah, never know. What is something that does not have a toy of it you'd love to have in toy form?
That is a good question. What have other people answered for this?
I don't remember. You think I remember every episode after I record, edit, and publish it? I don't remember.
Man.
See, now I know he doesn't listen to the podcast, folks, because he doesn't know what other people have answered.
I think I probably have listened to at least one episode of this specific series, but I sure don't remember what the answer for this question. I'm trying to think if there was some like unreleased characters that existed for some of these lines, but they've probably been made in like a classics line since then, especially when it comes to Motu and Star Wars. Wow. That is a tough question. Maybe back in the day when these shows were first airing, the lines only consisted of, for the most part, the main heroes and the main villains and maybe some of the recurring ones. They didn't produce a whole lot of guest stars or memorable characters that existed. They have since then, but I'm talking about like a vintage, I don't know, for lack of better term, or for not like wasting too much time on here, like Count Marzo for Motu. Right, there wasn't one of those in the vintage line, I don't believe, if my memory is serving right. But that's just one example. Like if there was a certain character that was kind of more of a side character, he wasn't on the main team, he wasn't on the main villains, but he was, like they didn't do Spike or any of the human characters for Transformers in G1. Not that I necessarily needed those, for example, but they also didn't do. Okay, here's an example. They didn't do the ones that just came out recently in the more classics line, the Orion Pax and
Dion and Ariel and all that. Yes. Yeah.
And I do remember that I wanted those, and I do remember that from the Transformers the movie, there was the characters that were in the thing that were going to get killed with whatchamacallit. That's terrible podcasting because I'm not giving the right names, but you know what I'm talking about, Kranix and those folks. I remember wanting those, and I remember in the He-Man, and I know they made these, but I never saw them, so I guess this doesn't answer the question right. But the live-action He-Man, those characters, I wasn't aware that they had existed, like Blade and Gwildor or whatever, and some of those characters, I didn't know they existed. So I would have liked to know that.
Very cool, very cool. What is a toy that you'd love to have scaled up and functional for real people?
I mean, I think that would, my mind goes to the vehicles in that point. The different, like a turtle van or like all the different, the Wind Raider or the Sky Sled. That would be great. The Sky Sled. I'm going with the Sky Sled.
There you go. Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would save some traffic jams.
How has your lovely wife dealt with your collection?
Better than I would expect. Nobody should nobody should have the patience to put up with. Especially, I think the most trying thing was probably the moving that we just did all the way across the country, because it's like, well, here's an extra, 25 Rubbermaid totes that are exclusively toys. And I think the other thing that got her was, here's the, 6 extra large size or large size movie boxes that you would buy that are strictly full of empty cardboard boxes and cards. Yeah, honey, the only thing in this is packaging. So they were light and easy to move, but it's going to take the space of 6 more boxes in whatever truck or trailer or semi or storage unit we're putting them in. So that was probably the biggest thing, was coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't getting rid of those yet. But she does pretty good. I think, and she did let me display quite a bit of the Star Wars stuff in our basement at our old house. And I think she would have allowed me to display more had I gotten around to it. I don't know in this new house if there will ever be a display anywhere just because of the space, but maybe someday.
So is the new house smaller than the old house?
Well, I mean, the old house had 2 stories, so it was like a main level and a basement, and each one was
you're in Florida.
Yeah, they don't have basements in Florida, and they very rarely have a second story, like going up. There is a few here and there, but not very many. So you basically sacrifice like a second level for a pool and things of that nature. So, but we'll see. I mean, there's room for us to expand our house and make it bigger if and when our budget can allow it, and if and when we decide to do it in the future. But we'll see if I get there. But we do have like a guest house that's basically their own little bedroom and bathroom and stuff like that. So I don't know. Nice. We'll see. That's my toy sorting area right now and recording studio.
Very cool. Very cool. So you kind of already mentioned it, but toy collecting can have its struggles. What is one aspect you tend to struggle with the most?
Say that one more time.
Toy collecting can have its struggles. What is one aspect you tend to struggle with the most?
I would guess cost.
Yeah, most people say cost, space. It is what it is.
You're right. I think the other thing would probably be the fact that I don't buy current lines I don't pre-order them. I don't buy them off of websites. I don't do any of that. So there is a struggle in actually finding some of the pieces in retail stores. But that to me is the part of the process, and what makes collecting fun is being able to find it. And it's like, to me, it's almost cheating if I just go on and order everything I want offline. Like, there was no like hunt. There was no like moment where you found it and we're like, oh, there it is. Like, there was no excitement. It's just like, oh, yep, ordered it, coming to me. So I don't do that. So there is at times where finding the figures can be trying, because sometimes stores aren't very good at rotating stock and things of that nature. So.
Yeah. And see, for me, I'm the complete opposite in my old man-itis, where it's like, oh, 3-0 MDLX, Optimus Prime, Cliff Jumper, Rodimus, and Megatron. Okay, I'll pre-order all of those on BBTS, and I'll just wait until they show up. So that way I know I have them, and I don't have to work for it. Because that's what I think toy hunting is it's work to try to find. So you were mentioning recently in the last, I don't know, whenever the hell this episode's going to go up, but you were talking about the new Masterverse movie-style Skeletor and other figures that they may or may not have done from the movie line, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't remember seeing those.
Yeah.
Yeah, toy runs are really interesting. What is one positive and or one negative memory you have with buying toys?
I don't think I've ever had a negative experience buying a toy. Well, maybe like an eBay purchase that came in and that wasn't quite as high a quality that it looked like online, but it's usually not too bad. I'm usually trying to do as much due diligence as I can when I'm doing that. And I have had times where a vintage toy has come across through eBay that's been way better than I could have ever hoped for as far as quality goes. So I guess it would just depend on those eBay purchases. If I'm doing something like in person physically, I've never had something that would stand out as overly positive or negative.
Very cool. Very cool. If you could create any toy, what would you want to create? Basically, they give you the keys to the kingdom. What are you going to do?
I guess maybe a classics line not done by Super 7 of Silverhawks and maybe, I don't know, GoBots, Silverhawks, Tiger Sharks, Thundercats.
Oh God, I was really feeling my age the other night. Somebody asked me in a Whatnot stream, "What are tiger sharks?" And I'm just like, "Oh God, you're so young." Oh God, 29 years old.
Just don't call them Tiger Hawks.
Yeah, no, it's Tiger Hawks and Silver Sharks. That's what it is.
Could have been.
Could have been. You never know.
In one of my videos, I accidentally said Tiger Hawks, and somebody felt the need to correct me on that.
Yeah, well, we all make mistakes. Oh boy. What is one piece of advice you would give the toy collecting fandom?
It's any fandom. It doesn't have to be toys. It could be a movie fandom. It could be a franchise fandom. It could be whatever. Just stop being mean to people. Stop being mean to each other. Stop hating on people for liking something different than you like. Just stop the negativity.
Absolutely, absolutely. What is advice you'd give kids who enjoy toys?
Don't start collecting them.
That's right. Leave that to your parents. That's our job.
Save your money.
That's right.
Go to college. Buy a house with it.
There you go. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. We're going to go to a quick ad break and hear some ads and some other stuff, and we'll come back to close the show right after this.
Last big party of the summer, folks. Let's go out with a bang.
Hey everybody, it's Jason with $7 a Pop in Mystery Grill. In case you didn't know, $7 a Pop is your #1 stop for buying Funko Pops online. In addition to the thousands of Funko Pops that you could purchase right now, we have our popular Pop Shields and Pop Shield Armors, plus our Signature Series collection featuring authenticated signatures on Funko Pops. And join us on MysteryGrail.com for your weekly Funko Mystery Box. We have our Sunday drops every week at 3 p.m. Eastern and our themed Thursday drops every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. What a time to be a Mystery Grailer. Check us out on 7bucksapop.com and MysteryGrail.com. Plus on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
That's 7bucksapop.com.
Hey, that was fun!
Hello, geeks and geekettes! Looking for a podcast that covers a vast array of topics? Then check out Altered Geek Unleashed, where we discuss our thoughts on this week's geeky news, tech, gaming, television shows, movies, cartoons, comics, and more. So, get altered, get geeky with the Altered Geeks, every Friday on the GeekCast Radio Network.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm the host of the Rock Nerd Radio Show, which airs live on HudsonRiverRadio.com every Wednesday evening at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It also gets backed up as a podcast, which you can find on your preferred podcasting platform. Every week on my show, I talk about all kinds of pop culture. I talk about music, I talk about movies, TV, comics, collectibles, and so much more. I also feature a guest on my show periodically, which you might enjoy. I have a couple of special segments on my show, one called The Cover Song of the Week and My Favorite Thing in the World This Week. If you think this sounds cool, check it out sometime. I hope you do.
All right, we are back here on ToyCast, 175 episodes of this podcast. We are 25 away from 200, and ladies and gentlemen, we are 6 episodes away from the top 100 toys countdown here on the GeekCast Radio Network. Got anything you want to say about that?
That I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a very fun countdown. I think it's going to be a lot of fun reminiscing and talking about the toys, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out.
Absolutely, absolutely. That will run, as far as I remember from my scheduling, whether it is what it is, but I wrote them down as episode 181 to 187 because it's the 80s, folks, even though it's 181, but it's still the 80s. All right, promote yourself. What do you got going on? What are you doing online? Something about a showcase of geeks or something?
Yeah, you should check out Geek Showcase. It's a YouTube channel. It also has a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and a Twitter. account, and you can keep up to date. I post pictures of toy hunts and things I've purchased. I take pictures of geek stuff. I post anything geek related, and we're getting into all the videos on the YouTube channel. I would suggest checking out the Ultimate Saturday Morning Cartoon lineup as we're making our way from 1983 to 1989. There's only 2 episodes that haven't been posted, so there's 5 that you can view currently, and then there's going to be some other fun stuff going. I'll tease my next video after the Ultimate Cartoon Showcase is going to be me going through. I have a book, a little picture / storybook of Thundercats that was like based on one of the episodes of the cartoon, and I am going to go through comparing the book to the actual episode. You're going to see pictures of all the pages of the book, almost like a comic book, but it's an actual book, and just like a little kid's book. And I think it's going to be fun to look at that compared to the episode and what they cut out, what they didn't, what was in one and what wasn't in the other. And we're going to be doing that, and there's going to be some other fun stuff. I'm going to be doing some Star Trek related content soon, so look out for that as well.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, the Thundercats book sounds a lot like Wheelie, the wild boy of Quintessa.
Yeah,
it was this. It's that similar Marvel storybook type thing. Steve and I did an episode of All Things Transformers about that, because that's how I remember finding out about Transformers the movie.
Yeah,
was I saw this book at my school library, and I'm like, oh, and it's got Wheelie, it's got Hot Rod, but it's like nothing like the movie at all, obviously.
Right.
But it was really, really like Wheelie had parents, and
oh wow,
just like yeah, it's a funny thing. So
I do have 2 other things that I'm going to try to get back to before the end of the year that I'll keep everyone posted, and we will at GeekCast Radio Network as well. But that would be my trip through the Ultimate Guide to the Cartoons of the 1980s, which are just written articles on the website where I'm going through and watching every episode of every cartoon that aired in the 80s. So that I'll get back to. There's about 5 or 6 of those out already, but I'll get back to that. And then I am going to do my darndest before the end of 2023 to have maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes of the Intro to Themes podcast, where I go through all of the cartoon theme songs in a special way.
Very cool, very cool. All right, thank you for joining us here on Toycast. If you'd like to get in contact with us, leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can listen to and comment on all of our content. Send an email to feedback@geekcastradio.com. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays. Apple, Google Podcasts. Leave us reviews, please. Spotify and any other podcasting client you choose to use. You can follow us on Twitter at GeekCast Radio for the network. I am at TFG1 Mike. You can also follow the show at TF Toycast. Is it at Geek Showcase or is it at Geek_Showcase for Twitter? I forget.
It's just at Geek Showcase.
All right, there you go. You can check out Geek Showcase on Facebook as well.
I lied. It's Geek_Showcase.
That's what I thought it was.
My bad. Everything else is Geek Showcase.
No problem. Absolutely. You can also follow us, GeekCast Radio Network, and Toycast over there as well on Facebook. Join us next time, and we'll be talking about something. I don't know what we're doing in episode 176. I really have no clue. It could be a display case. It could be an Origins. It could be a Toy Talk episode. I don't know what we're doing. So for now, I am TFG1 Mike with
Optimus Solo.
Join us next time, and we'll be talking more toys here on Toycast.